Murano. Welcome to Venice, welcome to Murano, and welcome to Berengo Studio. We're delighted to have you here today. My name is Jane Rushton, and I am the director of Fondazione Berengo, which is a foundation started by Adriano Berengo. And you are here right now in Berengo Studio, which is a glass furnace on Murano. And what we do here is Adriano had this vision. In 1989, he began this furnace, and his goal was to take glass to a new place, to have contemporary artists recognize glass as a medium in which to show their works. And he was following pretty much in the footsteps of Peggy Guggenheim, who in the 1950s worked with Constantini and Ophelia di Angeli and worked with such artists as Picasso, Jean Arp, Max Ernst. And some of those works in glass can be still seen in the Peggy Guggenheim collection here in Venice. Peggy Guggenheim is credited with the statement of glass is too important to be left in the hands of the shopkeepers. And so Adriano, following in this grand thought, has invited contemporary artists over the last 30 years to come to Murano and collaborate with the glass maestros and make art in glass. So some of the artists that we have worked with are Ai Weiwei, whose name I'm sure everybody knows, Tony Craig, who is considered one of the foremost British sculptors of the 21st century, 20th and 21st. Laura Prevost, who represented France in the last Venice Biennale. Irvin Verm, who represented Austria in the Biennale in 2017. And Thomas Schutte, German artist who's going to have a retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art in New York next year, of course, depending on our lockdown situation. And all of these artists come here and they create works of art in glass. Now, I explain this to my family a lot because they think that we work with glass artists. Most of these artists have never even stepped foot in a furnace like this before coming to Murano. And since 2009, Adriano and Fondazione Berengo have been showing these glass works in an exhibition called Glass Stress. And that's the function of Fondazione Berengo, which is a private foundation, and its goal is to support the mission of Berengo Studio and Adriano Berengo, the founder who is a true Venetian. And our glass stress has, I think we are in our sixth iteration during the Biennale of Venice, but it's also traveled. It's been in Beirut, Stockholm, Riga, New York, in the Museum of Art and Design. And right now we have glass dressed Boca Raton too. And we're planning this fall to go to the State Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, Russia, for Glass Dress St. Petersburg. Fondazione Berengo also sponsors other exhibitions. In 2016, we sponsored the first retrospective of the late Dame Zaha Hadid during the Architecture Biennale. In 2018, we sponsored Memphis Milano, which was an exhibition of the designs of the Memphis group. As you can see, I'm in the furnace and I'm looking around so I don't walk into somebody who has molten glass on their pipe. So one of the other exhibitions that we just closed was called Unbreakable, Women in Glass. And during the pandemic last summer, we realized that we wanted to do something to bring some life back to the city. And we realized that we had artworks by over 60 women and over the years. Artworks from some famous feminist artists like Judy Chicago, Orlan, Renate Bartelman. So we put this whole show together and we had Unbreakable Women in Glass. So today we are very lucky to have one of the artists who was an Unbreakable and has also been in 3 or 4 glass dress exhibitions. She represented Venice City in one of the Venice Biennales, and her work is also shown in Sharjah during the Sharjah Biennale. Her name is Marya Kazoun, and she is Lebanese Canadian. She spent part of her growing up years living in Montreal, and we are delighted to have her here today. And I will walk you back and introduce you to Marya. And please meet Marya Kazoun.
Hi, Maria. It's nice to see you.
Isabel. Hi, everyone. So over here, Isabel, we're making this piece that is a praying mantis that has mutated. That is.
We can't hear you, Maria.
No?
It's just put the microphone near you.
Okay. Is that better?
It's a little better, yeah.
Okay. So over here, you can see the last floor is making this element that is coming out.
No, we can't hear you. I just wonder why.
Is that better without the microphone?
Yes, yes.
But I can't hear you. Io non le sento.
Vabbè, però scrivono le domande.
Okay. Isabel, I'm not hearing what you're going to say, but I'm going to explain about my work. And in case you have questions, you can write them down in the chat box.
That's perfect, yes.
So over here, I am making this creature that is coming out from the landscape that you shared yesterday in the video. So this evoluted and mutated mantis is coming out from this whole scenery that you saw in the installation video. The final result is going to look like this over there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay. You can show also the sketch that we're doing here. And so he's making part of the body and making all the different elements, and then he's going to attach them together. So here he's making the top part of the body, and he's gluing the head. Look at the head being glued. The head of the praying mantis. He's heating it up, and he's going to slowly glue it. So in the world that I create, the creatures have different qualities and characteristics because global warming has disrupted the normal course of life and things. Can you go closer to me?
Adesso metto a posto un secondo. Dopodiché tacchiamo a Ponteo e mettiamo in tempera. Basta Ponteo sì. Basta Ponteo sì.
So you see he's mixing the head now. This praying mantis has wings, but it can't fly.
Adesso. Mettevo un attimo che metto a posto.
So now they have finished the top part. They're going to switch the blowing pipes so they can store it in another oven so they can keep it while they finish the other part. You're gonna see how they they attach the other blowing pipe to the head. Adesso mettete l'altro punteo, attaccate. Se riusciamo a tenerli non attaccate, riusciamo a tenerli. So he's keeping it hot. So the glass has to keep, the two blowing pipes have to have the same heat, the same temperature. Otherwise the glass will crack. The pipe change is going to happen now. So, they're switching pipes. Look how he's going to cut off the glass. Adesso mettiamo qualcos'altro.
No, ma adesso mettiamo in tempera.
Cosa
Come
facciamo
da carne,
dopo?
il corpo.
Corpo. So what they're going to do next is the body. And this piece is going to be placed in the oven, so it waits for the rest of the pieces, rest of the parts being done, and then they will be assembled together.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So there was a question. How many?
If you have any questions, if you can write them in the chat box, Thea will tell them. We'll read them to me, and then I'll answer.
Yeah, we have a few questions in the chat box.
So I'm making around 10 to 15 pieces of those, and I'm going to be placing them as an installation. Is there another? Sorry? Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that installation. So what you saw in the video yesterday were two humanoid creatures that were trying to assemble and put together their shattered worlds. You saw pieces and bits of glass that were completely broken, and they were assembling and trying to reconstruct whatever is left of their world. You can look at it as a frozen lake or frozen landscape. So, anybody has any other questions? Yeah. No? Okay.
Yes, there is a question. Where is the installation?
For now, it will be in my studio until I will have another, how do you say, another show coming up. Thank you.
Adesso fanno un'altra parte.
Why a praying mantis? Okay. So there's another question. Why a praying mantis? Because in Greek, it means he who is clairvoyant, or he who is a diviner, or it's someone who asks the divinities about the future. So I like the, how do you say, the references of the mantis a lot. So I used it, I decided to make these creatures that I will be making other organisms that have mutated in this world.
Where is your studio?
My studio is on the mainland of Venice. It's in Marghera. It's in the industrial area. It's a lovely industrial area, actually. It has very interesting industrial architecture, empty buildings, empty factories.
Who is representing you?
Actually, no one. No one so far. I was working with a gallery in Venice, then the collaboration stopped. But I show with curators who invite me to show in works. I've shown in the Venice Biennial a couple of times. I've represented the city of Venice in the Biennial in 2013. So,
Where is your next show going to be?
it's going to be in Paris.
Tell us more.
I've been working with this curator that has put this concept together about the, how do you call it, the protectors of the world. So she likes my work a lot, my work a lot, since it's based on world. And she's preparing this big show about the, how do you say, the keepers of the world. It's called The Keepers of the World in French.
Is it difficult to achieve your vision through someone else, i.e. the glass blowers?
Actually, not really, because this glass blower is really, really very good. And sometimes I would show a sculpture that is made with another material, or sometimes I would make a sketch and it would be enough. And sometimes I would tell him, use a scissor here or tweak it left or right. But it's a collaboration, which I think is great.
Have you heard of Blown Away?
I've heard of Blown Away and I've seen 2 episodes of it. I think it's very, very interesting. But I wish they would invite contemporary artists and show their work instead of only inviting artists who work directly with the glass object.
What is your medium that you work yourself?
Myself, I work fabric, I work paper, it's actually, my work is interdisciplinary. I do photographs, I do the video work, I do everything myself. So everything I can get a how do you say, everything, any material that I would find available around me, I would use. I would make the material dialogue together and try to find the relationship between the materials. And this is how do you say, the conversation between materials is what interests me, because sometimes accidental relationships happen, and it's there that, new connections are formed and I'm able to create new things.
Did you begin your glass career in Canada?
No, actually, it's I began my glass career here in Venice. I did an internship at the Peggy Guggenheim in 2001, right when I had started to do my master's in New York. And so I had the opportunity to work with the Berengo Glass Factory, which is, I think, the best here. And it's the only glass studio that works with contemporary artists and give the possibility for emerging, mid-career, and established artists to develop their glass work. And in case the glass work involves, how do you say, video and involves other materials, here the studio offers the possibility to work with the best craftsmen of the island.
Will your installation be mixed media with glass or just glass?
I don't know. I mean, I have to see the pieces first and see how they interact together. If they need extra things around them, or they would probably be part of the installation that you saw yesterday. But I would probably say they would be all together, just the 10 to 15 praying mantises that will be installed together. I think that would be, for the message to be strong enough. It would be like an army of praying mantises. He's doing now a piece of the body. You can see here. He's trying to do now the pancia. He's doing the abdomen part. This part here. He's going to blow it to make it lighter. He doesn't make it full, because in case he makes it full, it's going to be too heavy. Okay. I think all of my work is, how do you say, inspired from my childhood memories. The war, the destruction, the construction, finding beauty within rubble, and how do you say, giving nobility to humble materials. I also use trash bag in my work. I use bones. I use all kinds of different materials that would not be, how do you say, that were not inexpensive, I would say, or not very precious, and I would make them look like they're like nobility. Sorry. So this glass blower knows makes a small drawing here, makes this drawing, and he starts measuring the scale so that he can get the scale, the different proportions of the different parts of the body. And this glass blower is actually very good to reproduce. He has a very good eye, so he knows how the proportion, what the proportions should be. So you see how he's making the belly part of the mantis. And all the glass looks red because it's very, very hot. The final color is going to be turquoise, like the one that you saw, like the final work. And actually, one of the humanoids you saw in the video is my assistant who's present here. I'm gonna introduce you to him. This is Andrea. He's one of the humanoids you saw in the video. So you see, this is the final color of the mantis. So everything that you see while the work is in process is red because it's very hot. It's 1,000 degrees.
Nicer is cooking your work.
Actually, this glass blower is very nice and very humble. Some glass blowers, they really want to have their imprint and they tell you, no, this can't be done, or this has to be done this way. But this glass blower is really, really very nice and tries to accommodate me. Actually, I would consider making objects that can be used every day. I would love to make a chandelier. I'm drawing one actually, so I'm working on one. See what color the heated glass looks like. Of course, I commission one. So how I work is that the collector invites me or tells me, look, we have this space and make a site-specific work. This is my ideal working condition. I would get inspired from the space and create something built for that space, for the specific space. I will let Pia give you my website so you can have an idea of what my other works look like. So it takes I've started to make that piece, the glass blower started to make it at 2 o'clock here, about an hour and a half ago. So he prepared the pieces so you can see the top part already being made. So it takes him around 2 to 2.5 hours to finish this piece, sometimes 3. Some of the two busts that you saw in the video I made in the installation are made of the rubble that you see on the floor, the leftover. This piece is going to be the blue color that you see on the floor.
Yeah.
Yes, a long time ago, like maybe the older generation started, blowing glass very, very young. At 7 or 8 years old, they were in the furnaces already. But nowadays they go to school, and there's a high school that actually includes glass blowing and is focused on glass blowing. So they can study and glass blow at the same time. But a long time ago, it wasn't this the case. So you would have these extremely skilled glass blower, but that didn't have any education, but they had magical hands. So the blowing pipe is constantly turned so that the glass doesn't wobble from one part to the other. So it has to constantly turn it to keep the weight in the central direction. The weight of each piece is around maybe 2 kilograms. This is the average weight of the praying mantis that you see behind me here. This one over there. So it's pretty light because it's blown relatively. Some pieces can weigh up to 25 kilograms, single pieces. And if like an artist comes and he wants to make a large piece, it has to be made in pieces, in chunks that are maximum, what do you say, the diameter of the furnace here, of the oven here, because the glory hole, it's called the glory hole. So it has to be able to enter the glory hole. You can see how the body is slowly taking shape, the belly part. Then after that, he's going to be making the wings. Actually, each praying mantis will have a different form and shape. So they would be looking as if they were in action, doing something. No, not really. They're specially here for you or for special projects. When there's a lot of work, they come on Sunday. So you see, he's made the incisions on the lower abdomen of the mantis.
Nicola, I don't know if you can hear me, but we've lost the video here. Is it just me or is it everybody?
It's frozen here.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Let me just maybe send a message.
Or maybe type it for the.
Yeah, I just did. Yeah.
Who's helping her here? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Mansplaining.
Here we go. That's it. We're reconnecting shortly. Okay, they're coming back just now. Are you enjoying this?
Absolutely transfixed. It was so disappointing.
It's fascinating, just fascinating to watch that come to life.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you ever been to a glass studio like that?
No.
I have seen it
No?
live, but where they were blowing like it's just a vase, like a, you know, and it was.
So it's very different. I mean, giving the non-glass artist the glass as a medium, and that relationship between the maker and the artist and how you communicate.
Yes.
That's
That's
really
what I-
something. Here we are. We're back. Hi, Nicola. We can see you. Fantastic. Brilliant.
Mhm.
Actually, the bits of glasses you see on the floor I will be picking up the most interesting ones in shape, and I will make something else out of them. Actually, the most interesting part of this whole glass process is also looking in the garbage bin of glass. I'm going to show you what you can see, how many treasures you can find. Come see.
Mhm.
Here. So let's see some of the elements here. You can find very interesting elements. So I use this kind of element to do the two busts that you saw in the installation in the video yesterday. So the glass blower redo the leftovers. So you can see different days you have different shapes, different forms. Like over here, I just found a pigeon.
That's amazing.
You can find all sorts of, see the broken pigeon is interesting. You can use part of it or pieces of it. And over here you see the white glass. I use lots of this glass also for frozen landscapes. I make sculptures and low reliefs that are made with that would, how do you say, show snow. I would use this kind of leftover. So it's like really little treasures that you see here. And be very careful while manipulating them because you have like bad cuts. So over here, I'm going to show you the transparent, the crystal color. Okay, usually this gets melted again and fused again to make transparent sculptures. But before that, I try to look for the interesting elements and making sure that they're not hot. Like, look at this element. It's beautiful, I think. This one, or even this one. Look at this. Or even this one. I'm keeping those. Here. They look like ice. This is what I've collected today from the garbage bin. This is my collection of little glass elements. Look at this one. It has white white filaments inside. It looks like lace. Look at this piece. I don't know if you can see the filaments here.
We can, it's amazing.
So the glass blowers work always in symbiosis. There are 3 people, sometimes 2 to 3 people. They still have the structure of the middle leaf. Difficult time. So you have the main glass blower and the helpers. And then it's like a dance, and they have to be ready at exactly the right time to pick up the glass and to change the glass pipes. Look, he's now changing glass pipes because he's going to put the belly in the oven to keep it. So when he needs to assemble it, so they're changing blowing pipes now. No, actually, no, he's making a wing. Sorry. This is a wing. You see that the body has become turquoise because the glass has cooled, and you see that the wing is still orange because it's very, very hot. So where the glass blower attaches the wing, it has to be the same temperatures. Otherwise, the glass cracks because of the temperature difference. He's stretching the first wing. Actually, yes, it's by another artist, and they're making parts of it. It's not finished yet. I'm going to show you what they've accomplished from it so far. Show them the drawing first. Let's go see the drawing first. The lower part, the lower drawing. And this is the chandelier in progress. So this is an artist who breeds chicken. He uses chicken as his medium. So you see eggs, chicks coming out, chicken, how do you call them? Legs, chicken legs. I'm not sure where it's going. Yeah, it's still in the making. It's not ready yet. This is Koen's work, absolutely. Now the glass blower is making the second wing.
Chiaro.
He has to turn it constantly for the weight, and so that the glass doesn't change shape. tanto simile all'altra. Non è tanto... So he's heating it up so that it keeps the temperature, so that he can attach other things on it. Otherwise, it cracks. He's adjusting the glass because automatically it changes a little bit the shape when he puts it in the glory hole. Would you like to watch some more, or would you like to go to the next step of the trip?
If we have time, it would be nice to watch some more.
Okay, maybe 5 minutes and then we go.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you,
Okay,
Nicola.
thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah.
So look what he's making right now. He's making the lines that you can see on the wings. You see how it looks like a leaf? So he's making those lines. Adesso cosa fate, Nicola?
Adesso stiamo facendo la nervatura della foglia perché ha le ali.
So look how they're going. They're drawing the nerves on the leaf, on the wings actually. So they use a stick of glass, a very thin stick of glass. They heat it up, and then can you go closer, Nicola? It's using those colors, those sticks of glass. And using the torch to heat up the glass so it's the same temperature. Non puoi avvicinare di più, si brucia la telecamera.
Si montare tutta la ala dopo che va i tocchettini qui.
So he's drawing, he's making the drawing on the second wing. Show Roberto also. Look, this is the second glass blower that's holding the small thin cane. They have to be really very well synchronized. Each project is fascinating for them because they don't get to make the same thing all the time. I mean, in my case, they have to repeat it, but I expressly told the glass blower not to make them all similar. So each method is different. But when the my project is finished, they get to work on other artists' work. So they really get to make tons of different things, and they get to meet artists with different ideas and different concepts, with different also needs and requirements. So look, they're still drawing and making the nerves that are on the wings. I'm sorry, my English is a little bit rusty. Would you like to watch some more, or do you think you want to move on to the next level?
Let's go to the other activity, and we have one or two more questions. Maybe we can take them, and then we'll go to the next activity.
Okay, so we are going to the boat. Sorry, I cannot hear you very well. But
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, let's go to the boat.
Okay, so see you in a while. The connection could go away.
Good afternoon, good morning actually. Good morning, my name is Elena. I'm gonna be your guide for the next, let's say hour and a half. I'll do the camera now, because I need to Island. And this is the Rio dei Vetrai, the entrance of one of the spaces of the Berengo Studio and Berengo Foundation. And we're gonna head now to Venice. So we're gonna go through the Grand Canal, so-called Grand Canal of Murano. Very, very unusual and unique architecture from the 15th century, early 15th century. As you see, this beautiful townhouse that has a curved facade resting on a beautiful portico. And now we're gonna stop the boat and we're gonna moving through the rest of the small canal called Rio, that means canal, dei vetrai, of the glass makers. Everything from here. Murano became the glass center of Venice. This is the church of San Pietro of Murano. Once in the past was a monastery, so a monastic church. The last bridge spanned the Rio dei Vetrai, and a 19th century tower that serves also as a clock. As you can see, there's a clock on one of the sides of the flank. And here we are heading on the main canal of Murano, that is called Canal Grande, like the one of Venice, but you will notice that it's completely different from the one of Venice, since Murano was an industrial zone, an industrial area, also a town, an inhabited area. Of course, there were local villagers, there were glass masters, glass producers, artisans, but also Venetian people living here. But as you see, the architecture is mainly a functional architecture. It's not this kind of beautiful palaces you would find in Venice, the town houses, so well known all over the world for their architectural decoration. So it's a particular kind of architecture. The one of Venice is more decorative than the rest of Italy, I must say. And this kind of let's say opulence, we cannot find it in Murano, since it was, of course, an island mainly used for the production and the selling of artistic glass. Venetians inherit this know-how from the Romans, and it seems they managed to become more and more refined in the production of transparency, in terms of transparency of the glass, lightness of the glass, thanks to the contact with different population and the Syrians among them, Syrians and Egyptians, were very well known for, especially the Syrians, for the coloration with oxide minerals. Let me ask to our driver to speed up a little bit. Possiamo andare un po' più veloce, per favore? Grazie. I'm taking you in just for 1 minute in an internal canal. We have a magnificent palazzo just here along the side canal called Rio di San Di Maria e Donato. It's a church dedicated to two saints, Mary and Donna. And this is one of the most stunning palazzis, townhouses from the 16th century, Palazzo Contarini, just sold apparently to a foreign buyer, not to a Venetian, and the very famous Museum of Glass that once you will be in Venice, when the day you will visit, you will be able to visit, hopefully when everything will start again. And one of the most spectacular medieval architectures of Venice, it's a Byzantine church, the Church of Santi Maria e Donato. The apse of the church, that is generally the rear part of the church, where the altar inside the church internally is located, as you see, it's facing the Rio, the canal. So that's why it's highly decorated, as you can see, with the niches and beautiful loggia. Unique lightness for an apse, I must say, but simply because it was along a canal. And the canals were the main waterways of Venice, the main streets. Now we're gonna make a turn, we make a roundabout, we turn, a U-turn, and we're gonna go back to the Grand Canal and speed up towards Venice, passing by a couple of very interesting and spectacular places. Now we are turning the boat. Se voglio zoomare, sì, grazie. Perché se ho bisogno di zoomare, ok. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom. Nicola, puoi provare? No, not much. Okay, but I guess you can see how refined are these twin columns carrying this very light arcade at the first floor, whereas the ground floor offers us niches and inlaid marble works, were derived from Roman, you know, remains, archaeological remains. They were, of course, they were recycled in the early Venice. So we're talking of a Byzantine influence in the Venetian architecture from the 10th century onwards. Again, we are navigating along the Rio di Santi Maria e Donato. The name of the church we just seen is dedicated to Mary and Donna, and heading to the main large canal that divides in two halves the island, main halves, the island of Murano. Murano counts today around 4,000 inhabitants, roughly. Compared to Venice, is a much smaller island. And most of the activity is concentrated on the glass making, of course, and the glass exhibition, artistic glass, but also sometimes everyday use, functional glass. You see already at the skyline in the distance, Venice. We will approach the northern edge of Venice, where the district, one of the 6 districts of Venice, is located. Castello, the castle. We learn in a very short time why we call the castle Castello. This area where the Arsenal of Venice, the shipyard of Venice, is located. We're going to see part of it. And the Biennale Gardens, so-called, where the Biennale of Contemporary Art takes place every 2 years for visual arts and alternating with architecture every 2 years, of course. Let me ask to our assistant one thing, sorry. Here we are. Murano is very close to Venice, very close. So that's why we see already Venice getting closer. But we are also on the way to the north. We see wetlands in the distance, and we see Murano sister. We call it the sister of Murano, is the island of Murano. I'm sorry I cannot zoom, but I guess you can maybe see it in the distance. Following these navigable channels marked by wooden pilings, we would be in Murano, the sister of Murano, in 15 minutes by water taxi. Next to these islands, these settlements of the Northern Lagoon, they gave birth to Venice. And San Erasmus, and meet the vegetable garden of Venice for many, many centuries. And they are on the left side. I guess on the computer it looks a bit all the same. They are green islands, they don't have monumental architecture. Whereas already now you see the distance, the cranes of Arsenale, the modern cranes, you're going to see a very old one as well. And Venice Castello. And where the sun is setting in more or less an hour and 20 minutes, you see already the yellow light of the sun. We have a bunch of cypress trees. This is San Michele Island, our cemetery where Napoleon in the early 19th century decided to create a burial space for the citizens, for the inhabitants of Venice. It is a cemetery divided in three sections: Protestant, Roman Catholic, and Greek Orthodox. It's a romantic cemetery from the early 19th century where famous people like Ezra Pound, Serge Diaghilev, Igor Stravinsky, Josip Brodsky were buried. Now I'd like to show you the map of the lagoon. Nicola is helping us with the shooting and he's going to show us the map of the lagoon so you maybe appreciate how large this body of water that surrounds Venice is. It's about 320 square miles, more or less 500 square kilometers, 530 square kilometers of a body of water called lagoon that surrounds Venice. On the map, you will appreciate that it is very large and it has the shape of a moon, half moon. Venice is right at the center of it. Let me show you the map. And here we are. You see Venice right at the center, two bare islands, Lido, Pellestrina, one short peninsula and one very long peninsula. Mainland is the yellow part, of course, and the light blue is the shallow water of the lagoon. We have around 40 islands. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you very much. Sorry. This is our boat carrying us to the St. Regis Hotel, passing by beautiful different areas of the city. We are, as you can see, approaching the Arsenale of Venice. The name Arsenale comes from Venice, from Venetian. It's originated from an Arabic word that is Arsina. Darsina means dar, and Arsina means the house where you fabricate, the workshop. So it means a small industry. And the Venetian, of course, changed the word over the centuries into Darsina and Darsena, and then Arsenal. Arzana was also one of the ancient names of the Arsenale. Today, in the Anglo-Saxon world, this name means generally a collection of weapons or a place where weapons are kept, but the original significance of Arsenale is actually a place where warships were built, were constructed. Venice organized its first Arsenale state shipyard, naval center. The pulsing heart of Venice potency rested inside the Arsenale. That is a stunning surface, a large area. It's the 15% of Venice surface is occupied by the Arsenale. We're going to see a part of the interior of the Arsenale. You start to see the towers. This is a couple of three actually towers from the 19th century, since the Arsenale was occupied, like the whole city, the city-state of Venice, by the French, then by the Austro-Hungarians. We were under the rule, after being independent for nearly 1100 years, we were ruled by the French and the Austrian-Hungarians for 70 years. These towers were built in the 19th century by the French and the Austrian administrators. Soon you're going to see an installation by Lorenzo Quinn. This was from the Biennale 2019. As you see, Lorenzo Quinn, the son of Anthony Quinn, made this big installation of gigantic couple of, arms in pairs, making different movements. And this installation by now, is going to be kept here for now. It was not dismantled. Now we're entering the Arsenale gate, water gate, opened in the 19th century. The original entrance was inside the town. And we face a very unusual tower. As you see, it's very large. This tower is called the Tower of the New Gate, in its 30 meters of height. And the wall, the perimeter wall, are about 16 meters. It was built in 1807, between 1807 and 13, by a French engineer called Lessan. And it was actually a tower for the crane of the sorry, I have to say something to our driver. Vai fino lì, fai un giro a Uli. Mi hanno detto che ci danno il permesso. Grazie. Sorry. And it's a tower that was supposed to have a big, gigantic crane to mast the ship. The ships were masted by, should have been masted by this tower equipped with a crane that was never built. This is a superb industrial architecture. The Arsenale of Venice is the largest archaeological architectural complex we have in Europe. I think that the Arsenale of Venice was the most vanguard and potent military naval industry, in the whole Mediterranean Sea. And here we have the very famous Armstrong crane. It's a hydraulic crane. And it was built, it's an English model that was, the first was in Liverpool, to lift cannons that weighted 100 tons. And this crane weighs 80 tons. So, but it was built to, this hydraulic crane was built to lift the big cannons. We're talking of 1875 here, so it's later, after the tower. It has, you see, a brick and stone base, and then it has rails, and it can pivot. So it's a turning tower. And here in front of us, one of the masterpieces of our industrial architecture from 1577 by most probably Jacopo Sansovino, a very prestigious architect that built our magnificent library on St. Mark's Square. You're going to see later. These are gigantic sleepways. There are 25 meters beams resting on 3 rows of arches on large pillars, resting on pilasters. There are 1,750 square meters. A sleepway means it's a place where the boats, the ships were put on rest when they were not in use. Now we're leaving the Arsenale. We're gonna head into the so-called Rio di San Pietro, and San Pietro is the name of the church you're gonna see in a very short time. There was the Cathedral of Venice. You can see already the dome in the distance behind the wall, the perimeter walls of the Arsenale with crenellation. Beautiful walls. They were rebuilt in the 19th century, these ones, together with these towers. Sorry. Castello is probably, together with Murano, the first 2, let's say, industrial district of Venice. Castello dedicated to the marine world, with a lot of artisans connected to the naval industry. You see these beautiful walls, majestic walls, very potent. And now we turn and we see a Palladian church that was rebuilt in the late 16th century. It's an homage to Andrea Palladio, our grand architect, very innovative architect of the 16th century. And this was the Cathedral of Venice, where the bishop, the palace was this very simple brick building you find on the right side of the church of San Pietro, a unique example of stone bell tower, limestone bell tower. You know, this cathedral has probably the most ancient spot of Venice. It was built before, not the cathedral, but it was before St. Mark, low battery. Okay, before the Doge's Palace. Here you have also another example of a restoration of a townhouse. You see this townhouse in light brick color was purchased recently, 10 years ago, by a couple. They made an exquisite restoration with magnificent interiors. And this is a way that quite often, thanks to the foreigners investing on Venice, that many buildings are, you know, kept, restored, maintained, and bring back to life. You see the homes, apart from this beautiful townhouse I was mentioning, they are quite simple, modest, working class district, being recently very much gentrified, a bit like Brooklyn in New York, or I don't know, La Villette in Paris, and many other, you know, East End in London. And I cannot make a Canadian example. I don't know Canada enough. You see, we dry our laundry. We hang our laundry in between on ropes in between the homes. I don't know if you can appreciate this from the vision. This is the Church of Sant'Anna, no longer in use. The canale called Rio de San Pietro, sorry, with some gondola yard, modern boatyard. This used to be the boatyard where our water buses were maintained and restored. Sta cadendo. Nicola, è caduto forse? No. Okay, sorry, I'm asking for a battery. Okay, I'm sorry, but we have to change the phone soon because we have low battery. This is a gondola yard where we have gondolas being maintained. You know, every 6 months the gondola needs a maintenance, and these are very old, as you see, around down boatyards, and again, living quarters, apartment, condominiums, Venetian style. We are heading to the Giardini della Biennale, so-called the Biennale Gardens. And it's here in this place that our first contemporary art Biennale, means a exhibition of contemporary art, international contemporary art, took place in 1895, the very first in the world. The first Biennale in the world was held here in Venice, and we're soon gonna see some of the national pavilions, because since its origins, the Biennale is exhibiting by nations. For example, this is a very famous pavilion designed by Hoffmann, a super famous 20th century, early 20th century Austrian architect. This is Austria pavilion, for example. You see maybe not very much, but as you see, you appreciate some other white building. We have Egypt, we have former Yugoslavia, Brazil, here in glass, wood, and iron. You're gonna see after the bridge. This one, I don't know if you can see it. It's, sorry, here. This one is Brazil, followed by, on the other side of the canal, Hungary with the green tiles. And the most surprising and recent is Australia. This is a brand new pavilion that was made in black stone, and it's a beautiful cubic volume standing along the Rio di San Pietro. And here we are behind, we're on the side of France, this brick building, this is France, followed by England and Germany. So France, England, and Germany are one close to the other. All the countries that joined the Biennale in the early days were on this side of the canal, on the right side. Now we are heading on the most famous water space of Venice. It's, together with the Grand Canal, the basin of Saint Mark. Here it is. We're gonna now turn right and navigate through the basin of Saint Mark, heading to the center, the heart of town, the Grand Canal and St. Regis Hotel, followed by Saint Mark Square. Now let's turn and see what we leave behind us. Behind us, we leave the edge of the lagoon, the Lido. Lido is one of the two areas, so on the map. It's very close to Venice, and you see also the edge of Venice with the public garden of St. Helen. If you notice, but there are some small, minute islands. For example, the one of San Servolo, I'm pointing the camera towards San Servolo, and many other islands behind it, surrounding Venice, like a belt of monastic islands. They were like a belt surrounding Venice. There were monasteries, convents, and later on, quarantine islands. Venice was the first city, together with Dubrovnik, to apply quarantine systematically to the ships that were suspected to bring infectious diseases. In 1430, right and to the left of St. George. Now let me show you, we are navigating along a very, very long quayside called Riva degli Schiavoni and Riva dei Sette Martiri. They end, these two quaysides, one after the other, end into the Biennale Gardens. These used to be the docks of Venice, where the ships used to dock, or simply ships used to drop their anchors in the middle of the basin or dock along the quayside. Yeah. It's this complex here. You have the prison palace, the Doge's palace, the Church of St. Mark behind with the domes. We're going to see this later. And the brick bell tower that is towering the whole square. Next to on the waterfront, after the Doge's palace, you have a very small, minute facade of the National Library that shows its main front inside the square, and the Mint, that is a squared building of 3 floors, a 3-story building, squared with a lantern on top crowning it. So we're going to see all this later on. This was the center of the political and administrative power of Venice. Here, the Grand Canal starting. The Grand Canal, we know it's the Grand Canal because we have this very beautiful, elegant, tiny tower surmounted by 2 atlases carrying the world and the statue of the goddess of good luck on the very top. I'm trying to zoom, but she's a classical statue of the goddess of good luck, classical representation of the goddess of good luck. She's a weather vane. She turns with the wind, so it's very symbolic to the random quality of good luck. Like the winds, it comes and goes, and we just have to relax. This is the magnificent church, Palladian church, designed by Andrea Palladio on the island of St. George. In the distance. The custom house is this 1-story building. The tower was actually serving the custom house that was checking in all the ships that were entering the basin of St. Mark. And the superb, most famous Baroque architecture of Venice, the Church of Mary, Protector of Good Health, next to the very ancient brick church of St. Gregory. This church was built as a prayer to Mary to end a terrible plague epidemic that occurred in 1631. 50,000 people died during this epidemic. So it's a vow of the city. A dome was erected to honor Mary and ask Mary to protect. The Grand Canal unfolds this way, and along the Grand Canal, magnificent townhouses where the aristocracy of Venice built their homes. And here we are, by the way, in front of a magnificent triple palace, and this is actually the St. Regis Palace. Buongiorno. So some people welcoming us, of course. Chi è che mi tiene? Nicola, puoi tenere? Che devo recuperare delle cose.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Regis Venice.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us.
Can you hear me, even if I'm wearing the mask?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Ciao, Jane. So welcome to the St. Regis Venice, the new house of Astor here in Venice. And actually, the city's best address, as you could see from this quick tour we had from Murano to here. I am Gianluca, and I work in the marketing department here at the hotel. And I promise I'm going to be very, very quick. So I'm going to introduce the hotel to you, and then I'm going to leave the floor to Elena, who's going to continue this digital tour here at the St. Regis Venice. So a little bit of history of this wonderful place is actually that we've always been linked to the artistic scene of Venice and of to art in general, as the first floor of the hotel was actually opened in 1895, which is the same year of the first Biennale di Venezia. And funny enough, Ca' Giustinian, which is the headquarters of Biennale di Venezia, is actually 2 palazzi away from here. So we're very close. And from the very beginning of the story of this beautiful place, we've always been attracted and connected to art. Another piece of information which I want to share with you is actually that starting from that point, we started to become home to many artists of the time. Just to name a few, we had William Turner, and in 1908 we had the chance to host Claude Monet during his quick visit here in Venice with his wife. So basically, they spent more than a month here at the St. Regis Venice, whose name was actually Grand Hotel Britannia. And from his suite, he actually painted the gorgeous view of San Giorgio Maggiore, which is right there. And that is why we decided to name our presidential suite right after Claude Monet. So that was the beginning of our history. And from that moment on, many things changed. So we became a reference, address of reference here in Venice till 2017, when we decided to close completely the hotel and to go through a major refurbishment, which rebranded the hotel into the St. Regis Venice, which is who we are now, and which changed completely the structure inside. But what did not change was our affection and our link to art. That is why we decided to partner with Berengo Studio, which you have already visited. And thanks to this partnership, we wanted to enhance the Venetian tradition of the glass. And well, that is why we are a sort of gallery here of some where Berengo displays and exhibits some of his major pieces of art, which are inside. And well, I'm not going to tell you too much about this, and I'm going to leave the floor to Hélène, who's going to take you to this digital tour, and I hope you like it. Thank you so much for being with us, and well, welcome to the St. Regis Venice again.
Thank you so very much for having us. It's wonderful to be with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we just need 1 minute to connect to the Wi-Fi of the hotel. Just
That's
second.
okay.
Well, you can enjoy the view actually, which is very, very good today.
Yes. Sì, devo un attimo.
So actually, I stayed there. We took the kids and we stayed there 5 years ago. And I can tell you the hotel did need a good reno.
You stayed here?
Yes.
Oh, well, you know what? You're gonna find you're going to find a completely different hotel. So what I was not here, but what I get from people is that actually you do not recognize the hotel as it used to be.
Oh, wow.
So
It was a beautiful, it was already a beautiful place, but it did need a little refreshing. But the view is just incredible, being on the canal like that and facing the churches, and it was incredible. It was a wonderful family trip. So we're going to be seeing actually do you remember the glass sculpture that Irene showed on the last slide of her presentation? We're going to see that now. It's at the hotel. So that's going to be quite spectacular.
Isabel, I was just saying, but I was muted. There's something very special about the aura of Venice, aside from all the extraordinary, breathtaking beauty. It's a quiet place. There are no cars. There's a little bit of industry and there's motorboats, but it's a quiet place. You can always have a conversation on the street. You don't have a big truck rushing by. It's an amazingly comfortable environment because of that.
I agree. What's incredible is that there are a couple of streets or canal or places where it's unbelievably busy or the tourists are there, but just go one street behind or one bridge behind and it's empty. You have the place to yourself. I agree with you. Actually, it's a really interesting comment you're making. And the tourists, you know, they come out at 10 in the morning and then they disappear again at 6 at night. And in between those hours, it's deserted. You can enjoy San Marco Plaza by yourself quite easily if you're an early riser. We went to the we were there for a New Year celebration, and we took the kids to La Fenice, which is the opera hall, and it was only Venetians. And there's a restaurant just outside La Fenice where people go after the show, and you just mix there. And we were the only foreigners. It was extraordinary to be in Venice in a restaurant and be the only foreigners. But in fact, the tourists don't have much imagination. They don't venture much into the outside big arteries. But it's good that there's nobody now. It's bad for the tourism, but the city, I think, is really catching its breath in terms of pollution and
it really needs it. Really needs it.
They do. Here we are. It looks like we're back on track. Maybe not. Now, here we go. We can see you, but we can't hear you, Nicola.
To put their phone, can you see us?
Yes, we can see you.
Okay.
Absolutely,
Perfect.
it's perfect.
So entering the waterfront hall, the water entrance of the Grand Canal, St. Regis Grand Canal, from the Grand Canal, we can see this beautiful reclining nocturne, so-called, of Karen Lamont. She works with the lost wax and these magnificent drapings. Her theme is the nocturne and the feminine, and also the constellations. So it's a beautiful statue that recalls very much the Roman approach to statues with the drapery. Superb. You can see the absence of the body, but you can recognize the body of a beautiful lady. And leaving Karen Lamont, we have a very elegant, fancy bar of the St. Regis. And you can see magnificent pieces of furniture designed. And we get into the Erwin Wurm Fat Bass piece, where he's very playful and ironic. You see, like a bass that has eaten too many burgers. And we leave the beautiful bar of the St. Regis to head towards the land entrance hall of the Palazzo, because like all the Venetian palaces, we have a water entrance and a land entrance. So getting closer to the entrance hall of the St. Regis from the land, we have a tonic crag, coral crystals. Beautiful elements, seem to be to the point of fall, and the dynamic is frozen. So a few pieces by Tony Craig. The most famous British sculpture. This very beautiful.
Can you stay a little bit longer on this one, please?
Yes, yes, sure.
How tall is it?
This is roughly in centimeters, I would say is 45, 50 centimeters height per 20 width.
Right.
I'm trying to show you a bit on the side now. You see very much the beautiful, the softness of the how Tony Craig is able to transform such a hard material, but we know that from the furnace is start very soft, and to block the movement.
What's the name? What is the name of that piece?
This piece is Curl.
Curl.
And it's a crystal glass. Curl. May I go ahead?
Yes,
May
thank
I
you.
continue? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Followed by, in these beautiful small windows, we have James Coignard figurines. Untitled is the title of this work. You see the other windows and the entrance in the distance from where we came into. We proceeded towards the entrance and the welcoming desk of St. Regis and the land entrance of St. Regis Hotel. And we now discover Erwin Wurm, magnificent pieces. We have waiting, very playful and ironic, two very slim, long legs with a bag on top. A feminine sculpture. This is called Waiting. And then we have followed again by the same artist, Erwin Wurm, Vater and Mutter. Father and mother. Father is the bottle, the green bottle, and the turquoise bottle, that is a hot water bottle, is the mother. And again, another waiting. This one has.
Can you remind me
Yes.
remind us the name of this artist?
Erwin Wurm. Wurm, like W-U-R-M. It's a German.
Thank you.
Artist, and you can see this other, the twin of the first one we saw. Now we enter into the library. Superb library. We head straight to the end of it, where we find a piece by Fred Wilson. The name of this piece is this hanging black mirror called the Bat. So it's a classic work, Venetian 18th century mirror, magnificent. Now I'm going to show you the detail, all the details of the leaves, the flowers, everything is there, all the elements for which the Venetian mirrors were known. I don't know if you can appreciate the detail. Is difficult because it's black, really pitch black, pitch dark.
We can see it's lovely.
The special thing about this work is that everybody that mirrors himself or herself is black in the mirror.
Right.
So this piece, this magnificent piece by Fred Wilson is, of course, talking of the African-American situation, of course, the Afro-American equanimity, and he's talking, of course, has always been involved into equanimity, racism, and we are all one, and we are all black in such a case. Moving towards Venetian, Luigi Benzoni, in Italian, sorry, Luigi Benzoni had, you see this beautiful gold leaf with stylized portrait. It's a smooth surface, as you can see, followed by another Karen Lamont. We just have seen the nocturne, the reclining nocturne. And here we have two feminine, very feminine and sensual sculptures. Of course, we're talking of the feminine. I don't know, it's white, very with a strong light on her, but she's like a classical, neoclassical figure of a lady, again lying on a beautiful Roman sofa. And another figure. The material, the way the material has been worked, it's extremely soft. I'm trying to move the sculpture away from the strong light. She's very small, as you see, and it seems when you get closer to her that she's made of an old piece of marble, a bit worn, you know, like a soft surface, not hard surface. Very delicate. You don't see the details. It's a choice of the artist not to see she's not hyper realist in the details. There isn't this aspect of hyper realism. We go back towards the entrance from where we enter, and we see all of a sudden we discovered that we had a guardian that is nearly my size, so a real size, human size. This is a kind of a between a samurai and a medieval knight, a medieval soldier and a Japanese soldier, Japanese samurai. The artist is Penny Byrne, and the title of this work, very complex to produce. She explained to us that it was extremely difficult to tame the glass, because you see she trapped the glass in a grid, and it was very difficult because glass is liquid, as we know, and so it was very difficult to stop the glass from dripping out, you know. It's a suit of armor, a mix between medieval times and Japanese also. And we find that next to our guardian, we have also an interesting piece by intellectual piece and very symbolic by an Italian artist, Antonio Riello. The name of this piece is Ashes. Ashes because inside each one of these beautiful, very light, blown glass, gigantic glasses, drinking glasses, we can see that there are titles. For example, the title of Jean-Paul Sartre, Tintoretto, Sequestrato di Venezia. So it's a book by Jean-Paul Sartre that talks about Tintoretto and Venice. And then we have a German, Sigmund Schlomm-Freud, Der Traumendeunt, the interpretation of dreams. The Aspen Papers by Henry James. I don't know if you can see the titles anyway. And the Orlando by Robert Browning, and the Voyage au centre de la Terre by Jules Verne. So very iconic books were chosen by this artist and burned, and the ashes trapped in the foot of these beautiful large drinking glasses. They are not a normal size. So we say bye-bye to our guardian, show you from behind, and we proceed towards the entrance, the concierge desk, where we the Jaume Plensa of a child, a young girl, and with this kind of optical illusion effect.
Helen, oh, here we go.
Yes,
Sorry.
she looks like a frontal. If you look to her frontally, she looks like very slim and long. And when you go to the side, she's large. Now I'm gonna try to.
Can we see her again from the front because the video
Yes.
a
I'm
bit.
doing the 360 degrees or nearly, not fully 300, but you see she's very slim in the front. And then, and the type of glass is very similar. This white, soft, matte glass. It's not shiny. It's like this reclining lady and seated lady, classical by Karen Lamont. This type of softness effect on the surface. Okay, we're leaving Jaume Plensa. We're gonna see another one by him. I'm moving out of the concierge decks. As you see, there are 2 desks. Beautiful. And now we turn and we go towards a beautiful area, a lounge, sitting, and we head towards Maria Grazia Rosin, the fantasy animals, very colorful again, and this is another very playful and friendly piece. They are, you know, invented fantasy figures, and what the artist was thinking that these little beings were coming from the space. So a bit like a cartoon characters, I would say. Okay, we leave her and now we're gonna go towards the bar. But before to go to the bar, I want to show you another window where we find a Venetian artist, very famous, Lucio Bubacco. He starts from the classical figure from the, you know, the classical sculpture of human beings, but his theme is more like mythological. He is very interested into the mythology, the Roman and Greek mythology, and also the Egyptian mythology. And then he loves to combine angels with devils. In such a case, we have a huge, it's like the shape of a large, it's shaped like this sculpture, like a large glass, with on the very top you have Zeus. You see he's striking his lightning. He has a transparent lightning in his hands. Let's see if sideways it's more clear, because this is a transparent and wide sculpture. So it's not easy to film. And then at the base, we have an angel that is pouring wine into a glass that is held by a satyr, a satiro. Little angels blowing into a trumpet, and the other one is playing a string instrument. And then again, we have a Neptune or Poseidon and a mermaid, and they're also drinking, the 2 figures standing on the floor. Lucio Bubacco is a famous artist of Venice, very famous, very known for these very unique pieces. And he works with the lamp work technique since he was very young. He started to work and to learn in his furnace, the furnace of his father and parents when he was a child, and dedicated all his life. This is another female character. Again, the portrait is a portrait of a child, a girl. You see, in such a case, the choice was different because behind it's flat. Different from the first one. And less slim, I would say, also much bigger. This one is bigger. And you see, this is a corridor, like a lounge corridor, longitudinal shaped, going towards the bar along the Grand Canal. Here again, we have another two Luigi Benzoni portraits, stylized portraits. One is gold leaf and one is transparent. And finally, we enter into the space of the bar where we have Marta Klonowska. She's a Polish artist. She has this special, you know, she made a special choice. She decided that she wanted to work with detail of a famous painting. So, for example, in such a case, she chose a fish that was in a painting from the 16th century, and she enlarged, of course, the figure, and she made this sculpture with using broken colored glass. So it's a fish with scales that are made of broken glass. Difficult to maintain, to clean, of course. I'm gonna do again. It's a very large piece. This piece it's more than a meter of height, I would say, a meter and 10 maybe, and it's about 60 centimeters of width. Very complex. You can imagine how difficult it is to mount all these broken pieces of glass.
It's incredible.
Yeah, incredible piece. And now we're heading towards, this is the beautiful bar, as you see, with a very large terrace behind. It's a garden, let's say, garden terrace. You can see facing the basin of Saint-Marc and the beginning of the Grand Canal with the stunning church of Santa Maria della Salute and the custom house. I'm showing you again from here because now we're gonna leave the Hotel St. Regis from the other side, from the land entrance. And this is the custom house. And you see in the distance, the beautiful St. George Island with the Palladian Church of St. George the Major, the Benedictine, most important monastery in the city of Venice. Now I'm asking you whether you'd like to make a 2 minutes pause before to finish our tour with the Saint-Marc Square, like meet again in 2 minutes, or do you want to keep going like this?
I think let's just keep going. How long is it going to be, the Saint-Marc Square?
So we're gonna now walk to Saint-Marc Square. It takes, let's say, 5 minutes walk to Saint-Marc Square, and Saint-Marc Square, we can do it maybe in 30 minutes, I would say, or longer if you want.
So why don't we reconnect in 5 minutes when you're on the square?
Yes. So I meet you in 5 minutes when I'm on the square. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
See
you in 5 minutes. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Come si fa?
Guggenheim got it, but the parties and it's just over the top. And now it's the Guggenheim Museum in Venice. It's a wonderful book.
We have to do it.
I read it.
I'll be everything we put in the chat, because we're recording, I save it. So what I'll do is because you have put a lot of links, and Irene has too, and all that. So I will collect all that, plus everything we have shared on WhatsApp, and I will put it in one document and send it to you, ladies, so we don't lose these references. And then when you have nothing to do, you can carry on reading book number 628 in the last 12 months.
You know, I stayed in a convent in 1984 when I was a backpacker, and it was a youth hostel. So I barely remember, but we took a boat out to, I guess, one of those little islands that was the convent. And I remember it was very austere. There's a big cross the behind every bed. And yeah, the nuns didn't pinch anybody, but we got out of there. But we got out of there cheap anyway, so it's sort of fun.
But often it's these unusual locations that make the best stays, and yeah.
My first trip to Venice in 1964, Peggy Guggenheim was actually sweeping the terrace herself. Sweeping the terrace herself.
Yeah.
And her dogs were running about.
And she walked around.
Yeah, quite a story. When I went to the Biennale last Biennale when it was open, it's been a huge addition to the Guggenheim, the Peggy Guggenheim collection. I don't recall the name of the couple. It's a couple donation of a whole additional building has been restored and is full of more art, much more. It's kind of almost like another half of a collection added. So you read.
When the Venice Biennale is on, doesn't it last many months? It's not like it's a week, or it's crowded, but it's not like you have to go.
June to November 15th. Usually it opens early June with a film festival too, and closes in November.
Good.
I think about mid-November.
What would you say is the best time to go?
I think it's lovely in October. I generally try to go in October towards the end. The weather's lovely. It's not so crowded. June is crazy, and July and August is very, very busy with tourists. So I think
it's also hot. It's also very hot.
It's very hot.
Here we are.
Facciamo molto perché così documentiamo la parte finale.
Here we are.
Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, so this is one of the oldest palazzi of Venice, Palazzo Selvatico, Oriental influence. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, it's perfect. Helen, it's absolutely perfect.
Now we are underneath what we call the mouth of the square. You see, it's a monumental staircase leading to the very famous Museo Correr. Museo Correr is a large space that was built under the order of Napoleon. Napoleon demolished a very famous church, the Church of San Gimignano. Here you see a plaque commemorating the demolition of this magnificent church from, you see, 1557 to build. A church was named San Gimignano Church, to build in 1807 the Grand Ballroom. So this is actually, this ceiling is the floor of a huge ballroom, the ballroom of the imperial, of Napoleon, of course, Eugène de Beauharnais, the imperial government we had. We were under the rule of the Royaume d'Italie that was governed by Napoleon and his son-in-law, Eugène de Beauharnais. And here we enter the huge space, open air space. You see how empty, we can appreciate how empty is the square. We never saw such a square so empty. St. Mark's Square generally is packed with tourists from all over the world. And the St. Mark's Square is defined, the largest portion of St. Mark's Square is defined by these three wings. This is a neoclassical wing that was added by Napoleon to build the large ballroom. The wing here to the right, called the Procuratie Nuove, was refurbished and transformed into his imperial apartment for
Napoleon and Eugène de Beauharnais when they were visiting Venice. Venice was one of the two capitals of the Royaume d'Italie, of the Italian, dominion of France, and illuminated. This is striking, the light is striking on the bell tower of St. Mark Church, and we see the golden mosaic reflecting the light of the sun. We're gonna see this from closer now, but I wanted also to focus on this side of the square where we have the very beautiful Procuratie Vecchie, the old Procuratori di San Marco, offices and apartments. These were actually a bit like, I don't know, I would say the governmental offices of some of the most important high functionaries and politicians that were working inside these first and second floors offices. But there were also apartments that were rented to businessmen that wanted to come to Venice for business. So there were kind of chambre d'hôte, like in Paris, small bedrooms that the businessmen, of course, tradesmen that wanted to stay on the square. Under the ground floor, there are the shops, and they were open, and now it's a lockdown time. We're in so-called red zone, and you see also on the other side, on the opposite side, the same. So beautiful shops, luxury shops generally, housed inside these boutiques, like in the past, because also in the past here there were spice shops, goldsmith, rugs, boxes. We know that Jacopo Tintoretto started as a painter of dress boxes, because in the past we didn't have wardrobes. We mainly stored our dresses in the boxes that were where the dresses were stored. And here the closed, of course, sadly closed, most famous Grand Café of the square, and the first Grand Café in Europe. The name of this cafe is Café Florian. It opened its doors the first time in 1720. Café Florian is known because it's beautiful interiors, and it seems it was the very first coffee house that was beautifully furbished and painted. So it was like a small salon for the aristocracy of Venice and the guests of Venice. I mean, the visitors that could come to Venice and enjoy the first cup of coffees. And Venice was the first main importers in the world, in the Western world, for the coffee, coming via Ethiopia through the Ethiopia, and Yemen state, into Yemen Peninsula, into the Turkish Ottoman Empire. Venice learned how to drink the coffee from the Turks and then passed it on to the rest of the world. And as a main importer, but also tea and chocolate were drunk. The three drinking drugs were all appreciated in the Café Florian, and they became a social drink. First for only the richest people, later on the tea for the working class as well during the Industrial Revolution. We are approaching, getting closer to the Church of St. Mark, but what we find, before to focus on the church, I would like to show you the superb tower. This is a clock tower, 500 years old, that is marking a shortcut to Rialto, the financial district of Venice. Venice had four main spots. One was, of course, the arsenale we saw for the military naval industry. Second one was the harbor, the port. The third one was the political and administrative center, St. Mark's Square, where we are now. And the fourth one was the financial center, the Rialto. Rialto area, you can find it down the bridge of Rialto after going through this arch. Underneath this arch, you pass the arch and you walk a zigzag medieval street, and then you find
the Rialto Bridge. Past the bridge, you find the former Wall Street of Venice. This clock, it's a 500 years old, 24 hours clock with the 12 astrological months of the year, the 24 hours of the day, and the moon phase indicator, that is this ball, this sphere on the left, placed on the starry sky. It's blue, and half blue and half gold. I don't know if you can see.
Yes, we can see the ball.
Yeah,
it's not very detailed, but we can,
yeah,
here we go.
it's we don't see very well, but it's half blue and half gold. Okay. Now we go back to our square. So this 500 years old clock tower was marking the way to the finances from the political world. And we see there is one bell on the facade of Saint Mark Church, tiny little bell, and then that is announcing that soon we're gonna have the hour. It's in fact, yeah, you have the platforms, the walkways that we use when we are flooded. And on the top of the, I don't know if you see, but on the top of the circular clock, we have also a prototype of a digital clock with two rectangular windows. One is saying it's 5 in Roman letter. The other one is says in Arabic letter 55. In fact, 5 minutes to go for us to 6, sorry. And the Church of St. Mark is covered by, you know, some of the most important, I mean, the largest part of the war loot of the Fourth Crusade. So we have Byzantine columns, colored columns. Often people ask why these columns are all different, they have different capitals, different material, different marbles, but actually they're all part of the same war loot, together with the famous 4 bronze horses that are crowning like a Roman triumphal arch the central gate. And this loot comes from the Fourth Crusade, from Constantinople, and it's dated 1204. So all these columns were carved in Constantinople before 1204. I'm focusing on the only original mosaic we have in St. Mark's Church on the facade, and this is actually the mosaic from 1260. It shows you the church as it was in 1260, with a procession of prelates and politicians carrying the body of St. Mark inside the church. We're now heading towards the basin of St. Mark. I want to show you, if I can, if I manage. There are 2 statues, 2 automats on the top of the bell tower, of the clock tower, but it's difficult to see them.
No, we can see them.
Already,
it's lovely.
Yes, they move, and the first one has already banged 6 times. In the past, it was 18 times, because we used to you know, ring, to hammer 18 times for 18 hours. The Grand Gate, here it is, again, with the 4 bronze horses. These are the replicas, because the original are kept inside the Church of St. Mark in the museum. All the mosaics of the front were remade. They are not original. They were remade between the end of the 16th century and the beginning of 17, and they narrate the story of the transfer of the body of St. Mark. Here you see one detail, like, I don't know if you can appreciate, but there are, it's a bit in the dark in the corner, but there are 3 people carrying a body in a sheet, and then sorry, not easy to direct with my, okay, here it is. Oh. Here is the Arabs. They are checking the body, the straw basket in which the bones of Saint Mark, the holy remains of Saint Mark, were kept, and the man with the blue robe is obstruating his nostrils because he's disgusted. In fact, the Venetians found the way to hide the relics of Saint Mark in a basket covered by pork meat. This happened in 827 when Egypt was ruled by the Saracens. Saracens were the enemies of Venice for many decades, nearly 2 centuries. And Venice was an ally of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, against the Saracens. And this is the loggia of the bell tower. Bell tower was rebuilt in 1911, 1912, but the loggia was is the original one, although it was heavily damaged when the tower collapsed in 1902, the 14th of July. This magnificent loggia looks like a Roman triumphal arch, and it was designed by the grand architect Jacopo Sansovino. You saw the slipways, no? The shelters for the ships inside the Arsenale, the so-called Gaggiandre. He was the one most probably that designed this incredible industrial architecture, but he was one of the most refined architects of the Italian world during the Renaissance, and he built the first public library, the very famous library of St. Mark, Biblioteca Marciana. First public library in 1537 in the Western world. The 2 gigantic order columns carrying the patron saints of Venice, Saint Theodore standing on a dragon, you know, like looks like a crocodile. And on the other side, the other gigantic column is carrying the statue of the wing line of Saint Mark. They are marking a symbolic entrance into town. This was, I repeat, the political and administrative center of Venice. Therefore, the Venetians wanted, in a way, to create a kind of a gate entryway. And in fact, in the old days, you see this gate today, this arch with a cross on an inlaid marble work with a triangular tympanum on top. This gate was walled, but actually it was the so-called Gate of the Sea of St. Mark's Church, the entrance for the people coming by boat from the sea. People used to enter the church through this gate. Otherwise, they had another 5 gates, the ones we have seen a few minutes ago. The Acritan pilasters coming from Acco in near Haifa, St. John of Acre, the old name. It was during the Crusades, was a crusade town during the Middle Ages. So Venetians had their district, their quarters. This is the wall, magnificent, colorful tapestry. Now you see when we say Venetians loved the decorative elements in architecture, you see what I'm saying, very pictorial approach because it's like a painting made of marble. And the very famous tetrarchs, the 4 emperors, actually 2 are emperors and 2 are vice emperors. These are also part of the war loot of Constantinople brought after the 4th Crusade of 1204. And you see it's a bearded man hugging a non-bearded man, repeated 2 times. The bearded man, sorry. The bearded man is the emperor, and the smooth-faced man is the vice emperor. So 2 Augustus and 2 Caesars. So 2 Caesars and 2 Augustus, so 2 emperor and 2 vice emperors. They were placed at the corner of the treasury chamber of the Church of St. Mark by the grand gate of the Doge's Palace. Unfortunately for you, it's under restoration, luckily for us. And by the entrance, we have also a famous group of sculptures, is the Judgment of Solomon. Solomon is the figure on the left. Then you have a soldier holding a baby, and he's ready to cut the baby in 2, and 2 mamas are on the side, the supposed mamas, and only one will react and will say to the guard, please give the baby to her, to the other one. And this is the way that Solomon found out what, sorry, I'm trying to, yes, how to find out who was the mama. And this is the top of the gate, the honor entrance, so-called gate of the church. I don't know if you can see, she's in the sun, but there is a statue of Justice seated on the top. She's a female figure with holding a, holding a scale and a sword. Now again, we're going to add the Piazza San Marco, the final part of Piazza San Marco. This is called La Piazzetta, the small square. La Piazzetta is between the Doge's Palace. The Doge's Palace had three functions. It was the seat of the government, the house of the president, the Palace of Justice, and the last function of this beautiful, potent Gothic palazzo is actually was also the place where the prisons were held, were kept. The prisons, the old prisons. Not all the prisons were here. There were many prisons also in the districts, in each of the 6 districts of Venice, and even prisons in the financial area of Venice, the financial district of Venice. Now, to complete the visit of St. Mark's Square, I'm going to show you the buildings, the 4 buildings that you find on the waterfront of the square. The waterfront of the square, we have 4 buildings that belong to the complex of St. Mark. They were built by the Venetian government. We have the National Library. You can appreciate the beauty of this Doric, followed by Ionic order columns, a continuous portico on top, a continuous loggia, and the beautiful balustrade with the gods and goddesses of the Greek and the Roman mythology. You know, Venetians never want to walk in between the columns. So because I'm a Venetian, I want to make a tour around the column. Venetians think that to pass in between these huge 2 columns marking the entrance into town is a bad luck bringer, because here people were executed. It's a beautiful sunset time. Today you see the light, how it's striking on the white and brick stones of St. George, the Benedictine order monastery of Venice, the most important one, like Saint-Denis or Saint-Michel in Paris or Westminster Abbey in London, the same kind of importance. And down there you see again illuminated the banks of Venice port, and very, very far in the distance, the Lido Island. The Lido Island is very far. I don't know if you can see it at the skyline. And now we're gonna just show you the last few buildings. We have the jail building down there after the Doge's Palace. Doge's Palace is, of course, this huge palazzo with crenellation, with pointed arches. It's a very unusual Gothic. It's in fact, the structure looks like a bit like the library you see, with a continuous arcade and a continuous loggia. The only difference is that here the loggia is completely open, it's not windows. So it's a very light architecture with a, let's say, a Gothic upside down, because generally Gothic develops the open airy part. You see also the Italian police is making patrolling the city. So as you see, the palace looks extremely light for being a Gothic architecture. So it's the structure is Roman, but is an upside down Gothic also, I would say. Seat of the government, house of the president, palace of justice and prisons. Today is a museum. And to finish, next to the National Library, the mint. Venice started to mint its money, its coins in the in the 13th century. By the beginning, end of 12th and beginning of 13th century, Venice was producing its own internationally used currency. So I'm here also to listen to your questions if you have any. If I was not clear in some of the topics we have touched, we can, maybe I can reply to you or make more clear.
It was amazing, Helen. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. We felt that we were there. I mean, Irene said she could almost smell the scent of the Laguna.
Yes, and it's very nice scent because you see the algae now, the tide is very low. We have the green algae are the local, and the big brown ones are Japanese algae that infested our lagoon some years ago.
Shame.
Okay.
There was a question. Can you show us the view across the lagoon again, just so we can take it with us?
Okay, so this is the view across the lagoon. You have this one. It's looking, let's say, southeast, and it's the banks of Venice port, the former harbor of Venice. Then we turn and we have St. George Island in front of the Doge's Palace, followed by the Giudecca Island. Giudecca Island is also a very popular island. It's like the Brooklyn of Venice, let's say. And
why
then
is
we
it
have
called that? Why is it called the Giudecca Island?
Giudecca comes from Judei, most probably, or Giudicati. So Judei means Jewish. Giudicati means undesirable judged people. We don't know whether it was the first Jewish district before the 1516 Ghetto of Venice was established in Cannaregio district, and prior the Jews were asked to move and live on the borders of the lagoon and not in town. So there was a time when Jews were not staying here in town, let's say. But before that time, when they were staying, they might have been staying here in Giudecca, or it comes from Giudicati. And then again, you see the beautiful church of Santa Maria della Salute, the Good Health Church, and the little tiny custom tower, the Tower of the Custom House that precedes the Church of Madonna della Salute. And then again, St. Mark Square with Nicola is assisting me. Hello, Nicola, and thank you for being patient.
Well, it was incredible.
We are very sorry. We wanted, me and Nicola apologize for the several interruptions, but it's a challenge, I must say, between the connections.
It was absolutely perfect, and it gave us time to talk among ourselves and exchange stories and memories. It was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and it's making warm, giving warmth in our hearts.